Okay, we will then reshuffle everything, and Irache will introduce our very guest. So great to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Only second time in front of. Actually, we met in the commission, web farm commission. Last year, we were invited and take speech here in front of
So we're very lucky. Tu as pris mon téléphone?
Oui, j'ai tout volé.
Yeah, but then somehow has to organize.
I'm sorry.
Congratulations. What do we have here? So four of them. Distinguished guests, colleagues, may I invite you to take a seat. I can tell you that this exciting event is going to be web streamed. We are already online as far as I got to know. Welcome to everybody to the EU platform, Social Democratic Cities Against Sexist Advertising. This marvelous event has been prepared by many of our partners, by our family. It's a joint effort of our political family. FAPS, our foundation, has produced a booklet referring to the best practices existing in the EU. The Socialist Group and the Committee of Regions will ensure that this platform of ours today will expand at local and regional level. PSE women have contributed to this exciting event. The cities of London, Paris, Bucharest, Sector 5, Brussels, Segovia, Liverpool, Berlin, Frankfurt, and many others have supported that. Some of them here, others couldn't make it, but we know them all, and we will establish a network for the continuation of our work. Ahead of the International Day of Women's Rights, we launched this EU platform of the Socialists and Democrats, Progressive Cities Against Sexist Advertisement. As Socialists and Democrats, we are fighting sexist advertising already for a long time because it's fully in contradiction with the principles of gender equality, which is one of the core values of our political family. Why do some progressive cities have started to ban sexist advertisement, especially in public transportation or in the public space? They are doing that because they respect the dignity of all persons, the diversity and equality between women and men. They recognize that sexist and stereotype messages communicated via images, words, or the expression of attitudes in advertisement have an influence on people's mindsets and contribute to the continuum of gender inequality and violence against women, which is going against the idea of progressive societies. We would like to put an end to that. And this is more than a symbol today. We are united in our political family on the European level. We will unite in national and regional networks, and that municipalities, that progressive people in local authorities pick up and contribute, take the initiative, shows that we go local and that we are everywhere with this issue. So thanks for coming. Thanks for everybody having invested yourself in the preparation of this event. Thanks to our excellent staff that has prepared this event so very well. And now I would like to give the floor to my fellow colleague Irace. Irace is our spokesperson in the Women's Committee on Gender and on Women Question, and Irace will take the opportunity to continue with you and to introduce our distinguished guests here on the different panel that we are conducting tonight. Thanks very much for your attention. Please, Irace.
Thank you, Udo. Muchas gracias, Udo.
Thank you very much, Udo. And in the same fashion that I too would like to thank you all for your presence here today. I'd like to thank all those organizations that are here with us and have worked with our political group and with the various municipalities as well to put together this particular platform that we're presenting. I would also like to begin by thanking all those who have worked so concertedly in order to make this particular event possible. It's been a number of months now that the working group of the S&D Women's Rights Working Group has been putting together this particular initiative. Our friend here, Dr. Matan, and a number of other colleagues and comrades, we've worked together, put together this particular interesting and important initiative. And what you see today is the fruit of all of this work that has been done all of these last couple of months. The 8th of March is an fundamental day, important day for Europe, for European social democracy. It is a day of struggle, a fight, going out onto the streets, raising our voices, calling for a more equal Europe where women and men can work today, can live today in an atmosphere of equality. And equality ought to be basically a banner of European social democracy, and all of us and our commitment there is extremely important. the opportunity to be here today from different levels of political life, of society, etc., is very important. Here we have the municipal level, we have the European level as well. Citizens are calling for us to approach the people of Europe, to be closer to the people of Europe, and this is a very important way to work concertedly, to cooperate the various different levels of government, to create venues of debate, cooperation between the European level and the local authority level, municipalities. Men and women, social democrats, are working together at the local level as well in order to make their particular contribution, even if that's just a little grain of sand, to make their contribution to this particular struggle. So we need to move forward for a Europe, a more equal Europe, and for that it's necessary to put an end to the various stereotypes that exist. The role of women in society, the role of women over the last couple of years, many things have been done, but not enough has been done in order to achieve equality. So more has to be done so that mass media and the image today of women, well, we have this negative image which is prevalent. We have numerous different stereotypes as well. So the time has come for us to move forward, to put an end to sexist advertising in all public spaces. This is a major step forward, ladies and gentlemen. And for that reason, I would like to express my gratitude to you, to the presence of all of those particular groups here, a very important political job that has to be done at the municipal level to make that particular ban of advertising in public spaces. And once again, I'd like to thank the various organizations that are here with us today, working in this particular sphere, and those who have wanted to participate and work together with us. Once again, all of my gratitude. And at this point, I'll present the various individuals that are going to participate in this first panel. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Marie-Noëlle from Chien de Garde. It is an NGO, a French NGO, which has been fighting for over 10 years now against sexism in public spaces. Organizations, the administrations we need this level of organization, of social organization, of the work of NGOs, which allows us to work together to provide solutions in this particular realm. So I'd like to thank you very much for your presence here today. Marie-Noëlle, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. Well, according to Eva Britt-Svensson, the former chair of the Women's Rights and Equality Committee of the European Parliament, publicity and marketing have a big influence on society's efforts to make women and men more equal. Many people don't realize the extent to which the images that surround us influence us. Advertising is everywhere, at home, in public spaces, on magazines, television, etc. If we represent men and women in a stereotyped manner, it's going to be much more difficult for us to see the skills of one or the other in other areas other than their traditional areas. That's the way that girls and boys are influenced in their choices in education and career. The influence of advertising media is all the more important for children and adolescents who are much more sensitive and influenceable. But what is a gender stereotype? Gender stereotypes are the beliefs that are very strongly anchored in our collective unconsciousness that certain skills or personality traits are for boys or girls from birth. The corollary of this is the idea that genetic material conditions people to fulfill a certain role in society depending on whether you're born male or female. Are boys better at maths than girls? Are girls more sensitive than boys? Have you got the right to cry if you're a boy, or the right to play football if you're a girl? Simply asking these questions brings out the fact that these stereotypes are attached to individuals' gender, and they limit them to a predefined social role. They function according to simplistic schemas and not on the basis of the facts. All these stereotypes, simplified images, received ideas, they structure our social life. They impose on women and men roles. Women are less scientific, sweeter, but more chattier than men. Women spend money, they love shopping, but whereas men are attached to their cars, they're competitive. All these stereotypes are part of our culture. Throughout our lives, standards, values, ideas stereotypes shape us and influence our attitudes and behavior. Interiorizing these stereotypes means that people feel they need to be a real man or a real woman. Men are supposed to be honest, professionalists, they're supposed to be ambitious, be strong. Women are supposed to have a nice physical appearance, to care for others and to be intelligent. These are limitations and labels that exert pressure on people. But all of this can have a perverse effect and create errors of judgment, particularly at an age where people lack confidence in themselves. And for girls in particular, transgressing gender stereotypes is very difficult. So why do we need to be deconstructing gender stereotypes? Violence, self-esteem, being able to flourish. Gender stereotypes exert huge pressure on children, and their consequences on their physiological and psychic health are far from minor. Girls wearing pink, boys wearing blue. Beyond these symbolic labels, these cliches have a devastating effect among both sexes, because gender stereotypes can model their behavior. So we need to deconstruct these dominant images of masculine and feminine. What can we do to achieve gender equality? If you look at the media, the culture, the education system and society as a whole, this has a big effect on equality. Our representations of male and female are the result of a social construct, and we cannot take conscience of this without an effort. We have to take into account equality as and change our way of thinking and seeing the world and structuring it. We need to look at social and professional roles. We need to look at our identities. We need to think about changing factors that are very fundamentally anchored within us. The concept of gender is always being instrumentalized for political ends. The question is trying to give individuals the chance to realize themselves along this principle of equality, which is so dear to the French. That's why 19 years ago, on the 8th of March 1999, the Chien de Garde Association was set up to fight against symbolic violence in public space towards women, and specifically sexist advertising. So for many years now, we have been coming up against gender stereotypes, particularly when you listen to politicians, when you see adverts and advertising slogans, and we need to continue to fight against it. We are constantly entering complaints to the advertising watchdogs, which have a deontological committee. They examine our arguments and provide an advisory opinion. More and more, you can see that there is less and less tolerance of sexism, and the jury is providing a favorable response to our complaints. They say that certain advertising images or advertising slogans do not fit in with the deontological rules of the profession. So our stubbornness and patience have been rewarded. Luckily, in France, we have at our side the Superior Council of Audiovisual Media. They respond to sexist advertising as well, and we have a High Equality Council, which regularly publishes reports which provides guidelines for actions against standard sexism. And we also have the support of ministries and secretaries of state. It's actually thanks to the minister from the previous government that we were able to produce a guide raising awareness, particularly for those who work in the advertising sector. This was carried out in 2017 thanks to the full involvement of a network of more than 1,200 women who were involved in the advertising industry. And I'd really like to salute their work. The network took this project into its own hands, developed it, and created a non-sexist communication kit open to everybody that's online, and it is really proof that together we can go further, faster. It's also in a team that we were able to work together with the Italian feminist Donatella Martini from the association Donne in Quota. We created a coalition, WeCams, the Women's European Coalition Against Media Sexism, to try to work together with the British Association Object, to work at the European level to fight against sexist stereotypes in advertising. I and myself, in March 2017, met the member Edouard Martin and his parliamentary assistant Jean Pontet, and they've both been very involved in women's rights. They heard about our European projects, and that's why we're here this evening. Thank you for having invited us to this event, and we have been looking forward to it for such a long time. Thank you.
Merci, Marie. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Marie-Noël. And continuing with this particular panel, I'd like to give the floor right now to Marcel Wicker from Pink Stinks. It is a German organization which is fighting against different types of sexist advertising, where there are specific gender roles ascribed to children and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to look at this, to be able to move forward with this change in mentality. Very, very difficult, but absolutely imperative. So Marcel, at this point, I'd like to thank you for being here, and I give you the floor. Thank you.
Guten Abend.
Good evening. I'm very glad that I can be here with you. My name is Marcel Wicker. I'm from Pink Stinks, Germany, from Hamburg, fighting against sexist material, and we're here to present to you some of our activities. Pink Stinks. Pink is, of course, pink does not stink. It is a color. But what stinks is the pinkification of things. In other words, the world is divided between red and blue, or pink and blue. This is something which is unacceptable, and it is frequently very sexist in nature. And this is something which is clear in advertising as well. And we are a protest organization. We've been active for the last 6 years in detecting sexist advertising and trying to minimize it. Sex, yes. Sexy, yes. Sexism, no, is our particular motto. And of course, it is not necessary to deliver some sort of sexist message in order to sell. It isn't necessary for advertising. And quite clearly, it is reducing an individual. It is demeaning as well. And these are the types of advertising that we like to, that we're fighting against. Of course, there is that classic, if you like, hierarchical situation: women above, women below, men above. And this is not only sexist, but it is also racist in nature. This type of advertising for example, a young baker woman who is about to take a bite into her long phallic croissant, or other types of advertising where clearly this type of message is delivered, a sexist message, and or for example, for some sort of drill or air drill device, how to ram that particular drill into a certain place, once again, where the message is not only one of a visual nature, but also verbally sexist in nature. This is advertising which is definitely in the direction of sexualized violence as well. And of course, all of that has to be gotten rid of. And there's also sexism against men as well, much more subtle in nature and much more rare, and usually done in the fashion that, men are, the message being delivered that men aren't people that involve themselves with household tasks or washing machines or so on and so forth. In this particular advertisement, we see that what is stated is that men also get thirsty. That is the particular message here. And why do we see this type of advertising? We have an advertising council in Germany, but it cannot forbid, and it does not distinguish in a subtle fashion between these various different types of advertising. And this is a text that we've put together, a legal specialist who received the award for the best legal specialist in Germany a couple of years ago, put together this particular text. The problem is not that I see sexism everywhere, but the problem is that you don't. And there are three principal criteria that are incorporated within this. First of all, discriminatory advertisement is, first of all, when people are put in some sort of hierarchy according to their sex and their ability, or that sex is one of the only values with which women are associated with sexual activity and nothing more than that. And a third criteria as well, that being that women are simply objects of sexual objects and nothing else. Now, the SPD a couple of years ago brought up within a number of its meetings the need to look at this particular issue of sexual advertisement. That would be necessary to have some sort of monitoring body as well to see to what extent sexist advertisement exists in Germany and what can be done against it. And this particular monitoring activity has been handed over to us, and we have a new kind of registration system which has been put together a couple of years ago. It has been supported by the Federal Ministry for Women, Youth, and it is a mobile website or app where people can register sexist advertising, and we look at the particular advertisement after it's been registered, wherever it might be in the Federal Republic, and then we, according to the criteria that I mentioned, we determine whether the material is sexist or is or is not sexist in nature. And then we, of course, put onto that particular app map where the advertisement appears in the Federal Republic. We've received in the last 6 months over 1,000 types of advertisement have been registered, 600 of which have been, according to our criteria, determined as sexist in nature. And most of the discriminatory advertisements we've seen on trucks and private vehicles as well. Much more so in rural areas than in major metropolitan areas. And the larger advertisers, for the most part, are not, because of this particular campaign, which has been affected. Large advertising companies have not produced this type of material. It's both, for the most part, small, middle-sized advertisers which have been guilty of producing this type of sexist advertising material. Those are the initial trends. Of course, we'll see in the years to come what the developments will be, and there'll be much more to point out on this particular front. But sensitizing the public is extremely important, and acceptance for sexism is important to create zero tolerance with regard to this. And also in this sensitizing campaign, making people aware of that particular phenomena. We've been working a lot in education, in schools, and here we have David and his pink pony. The message being that young boys can also be tender, if you like, or display these particular qualities of tenderness. Also, there's an activity for a program for young women. Heidi Klumer, a top model in Germany, has been active in this particular campaign. It's a music video with dance, music, and so on and so forth. And the video has been extremely successful, and delivering a special message about how girls can be, and then also different types of advertisement campaigns have taken the form of, for example, these
Wir haben zusammen mit dem Fußballverein FC St. Pauli
these little beer mats as well. And also with superheroes, we have another advertising campaign for children. And this also, which has been put in a number of different athletic event venues as well, delivering a message against homophobia, being engaged against sexism, and we hope that these types of campaigns will be effective naturally. And finally, a last example, or rather the second to the last image, once again the superheroes here in the form of a coloring book. And we've also put together a progressive prize for the best advertising, and this particular campaign is called the Pink Poodle campaign. In other words, advertising material which delivers a positive message is to be awarded. Once again, it's not only important to emphasize or to point out the negative, but the positive as well. Now, 4 people from Hamburg, 4 individuals, not only because they like it very much, but because they feel very, very dedicated to this particular subject, have been working to dealing with the issue of sexism in a number of different urban centers in Bremen and in Berlin and elsewhere, with a number of different events. There were questions came up as to the possibility that the various criteria were a little bit too strict, a little bit too complicated. So basically what we tried to do is simplify this particular process. But what I want to say is that we've been working through everything in order to really make people sensitive about this particular issue and effective on this particular front. Thank you.
Siento ser poco flexible.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to be so strict about time, but there are got a lot of people who want to make a contribution, who want to participate. We've still got one organization on this particular panel, and then the next panel will be those representing the municipalities and cities. And I would like to give the floor to Jeanette Arnold, representing the City of London, because I understand that she is going to have to leave soon. So I'll hand the floor straight to her, and then we will move on and carry on with this particular panel. But I'm going to give the floor to our colleague from London because she's going to have to leave us. So the floor is yours, madam.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for your invitation here today. And I'd just like to start by congratulating you, Chair, and the work of S&D Femme Working Group for pulling together the Charter of Commitment Against Sexist Advertising. I'm also thrilled to be here to say that on looking at this charter, that London is in a position to be able to tick many of the items on this charter. As with every city, there's always more work to be done, and I look forward to taking this charter back to London and seeing where the areas that we've still got work to do. But I just want to say, in terms of no to sexist ads, that we in London now, we have the London transport system with a policy that states that advertisement will not be accepted if they could reasonably be seen as likely to cause pressure to conform to an unrealistic body type or as likely to create body confidence issues, particularly amongst young people. This is so important, and I would say to representatives of cities and even municipalities, if you are in control of your transport system, this is something that you can do and must do. And I can assure you that since this policy was introduced, no advertiser has walked away from Transport for London. No company has lost its profit margin. Do you know why? Because this is a target audience of millions within the transport system that advertisers want. And if they want to get access to that population, then they must be asked to abide by policies and principles that show respect to the users of that system and to our citizens. I have to say also that the work that came about from our current socialist mayor, Sadiq Khan, and we campaigned on this during his election and made sure that it was in his manifesto, is something that goes back to 2000, when for 8 years, myself and others as socialist representatives in London, working with a socialist mayor, we realised that our transport system was one of the most unsafe, hostile environment for most people, especially women and young people. When I asked a question in 2013 of young people, have you ever been touched? Have you ever had people put their hands up your dress? Have you ever been molested? Have you ever seen inappropriate images? They said, oh, come on, Jeanette, we see that all the time. Don't worry about it. Right? And I said, no, we have to worry about it because it is unacceptable. And it's about how we create a realm in our public domain that says there is a level that we find acceptable, and beyond that, that is unacceptable. And we, as elected representatives, especially socialists, we have a job to make sure the policies that we introduce work and mitigate against that. And so I don't think there's anything to fear here. It takes some time. We're working on it from 2000. We first had to clean up the environment because we had predators within our unregulated taxi service that are now serving long sentences because that's where they went and looked for their prey. We had our system that was dominated by sexist images, as we've seen from the Pink Stinks campaign. And that was an offence to every user. But imagine how that was impacting on the mindset of women and our young women especially. So we made that commitment. You can find out more about this work. It's still on the website of Transport for London in terms of the advertising steering group that they worked with. It's a European agency, JC Dussault, who I've seen their advertising logo here. So I repeat, no major advertising company has walked away from advertising in this area. And so I totally understand what you're doing in terms of the national campaign about making it national. But at the same time, let us not forget, and we know it as socialists, change starts at the local and at the city region. And then national governments come on board. That is my experience. When I led stopping in smoking in public places in London, our national government said this would never happen. You know the truth of that now. So action by representatives at the local and at city government will bring about change. And in this campaign, I think it's timely. I think when we are now celebrating 100 years of women's suffrage, I think it's time we cleaned up our environment and we said no to sexist advertising. And we say to advertisers, you will not make money and bring offence into our public realm. So I welcome all the work that you're doing. And just to say, let me just say, we in London will still be there to work with any city post-2019. Because we will continue our work. So please keep contact with us, and if there's anything that we can do to share what we're doing, it's really available, and do contact us. And I'm so sorry that I have to leave you now. I started action from the morning rather than staying overnight, because I have to be in London because I chair the London Assembly and its committees. So I'm so sorry I can't be with you, but just do look at what we've done in London. And if we can do it in London, cities and towns can do it. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Janetta. I'm very proud to see our local and city governments fighting against sexism, and I think that you are a good example. We will never forget, and we will keep in contact and maintain our cooperation. And
now, in order to close with this first panel, of organizations, I'd like to give the floor to Donatella Martini from Donne in Quota. It's an NGO from Italy which defends the participation of women in decision-making and is also fighting advertising, sexist advertising. Thank you very much, Donatella, for being with us, and you have the floor.
Good afternoon. First, a few words about Donne in Quota, just to make you understand what we do every day. We are an Italian association founded in 2006 with the specific aim of improving women's participation in politics and changing women's representation in the media. An example of our political work is that in 2010 we appealed to the court against the Lombardia government as they did not respect regional statute on the composition of the council, only one woman councillor among 14 members. And after a long fight, we won. Because of our action in 2013, the new regional council nominated 7 women and 7 men. Regarding women's representation in the media, in 2008, we began writing letters against sexist adverts. We got in touch with institutions, both public and private, and organized public meetings to inform people about this problem. We objectively achieved a higher public awareness on this problem, and now there's a lot of people who react in front of sexist ads. We also propose a law to our government entitled On Gender Equality and Non-Discrimination in Advertising and All Media, as Comitato Immagine Differente, Donne in Quota together with the CGL Union. I will start my speech. It is long established that the frequent and unrelenting portrayal of women as sexual objects plays a key role in maintaining gender inequality. Moreover, sexual objectification has a negative impact on both the aspirations and self-esteem of women and girls, and promotes attitudes and behaviors associated with discrimination and violence against women. The CEDAW Committee, UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, has repeatedly called on governments to take action against the stereotyping of women, arguing that such representations contribute to women's disadvantaged position in a number of areas, including in the labor market and in access to decision-making positions, and affect women's choices in their studies and professions. The European Parliament has also voted in favor of several gender equality resolutions, such as Impact of Marketing and Advertising on Gender Equality, 2008, Fighting the Sexist Stereotypes in Media in 2010, Eliminating Gender Stereotypes in the EU in 2013. These resolutions ask advertisers to stop using sexist stereotypes and member states to issue rules so that advertisers would not use sexist stereotypes without sanctions. But governments are not working seriously to change culture, with only France as an exception. Advertisers continue to use sexist stereotypes, and member states are not monitoring anything. That's why in 2013, 3 feminist groups, Donne in Quota for Italy, Chaîne de Garde for France, and Object for UK, founded WICAMS, Women's Coalition Against Media Sexism. with the specific aim to bring an end to sexism in the media in all Europe. All three groups campaigned in their own countries for many years against sexist, objectifying, and dehumanizing representations of women. As a result, each group increased public awareness on this problem in its own country, but we couldn't draw any politicians' attention. We need politicians because we cannot wait any longer for a specific law regarding the portrayal of women in advertising, as in Italy, in the UK, and in France, we still don't have it. In this void of rules, more than 60 years ago, private self-regulatory organizations were founded in all Europe and gathered in a federation called ESA, European Advertising Standard Alliance. Each local SRO has its own code and organization and is considered like a public authority on sexism, as they are the only one who seems to care about it. We do not agree on this opinion for two simple reasons. SROs do not respect European resolutions, even if Dunning Quata, Schendegaard, and Object try to push local SRO, YAP for Italy, ARP for France, and ASA for UK, to do it. Without gender experts in their juries, they are not in the position to judge sexism. Last but not the least, in our opinion, only national women's rights ministers, in accordance with feminist groups, have the right to issue precise guidelines regarding women's representation in the media. When we started to work, we had clear in our minds we need to push SROs to respect European resolutions, to convince MEPs about the necessity to have a directive on this matter, while we continue to ask our national governments to issue a specific law. With strong support from MEPs Silvia Costa from Italy, Sylvie Guillaume from France, and Mary Honeyball from UK, we met twice, in November 2013 and February 2014, in Brussels with EASA people, the network of advertising self-regulation bodies. We presented them our positions. We explained why sexual objectification and sexual stereotyping of women and girls constitutes discrimination, and emphasized that objective criteria exist to assess whether the content of an advert is discriminatory. As a result of our meeting, EASA has promised to consider how it could use its standard-setting role to help ending sexism in advertising, but till today we haven't heard any news from them yet. On March 8, 2015, we launched a European petition on change.org, Say No to Sexist Ads, to ask the European Union to strengthen its law against sexism in the media in line with the views of the European Parliament and treat sexism in the same way as racism and xenophobia. Unfortunately, we reached only 3,619 supporters. But if we sum all petitions on change.org on this subject, we reached more than 100,000 supporters. For this reason, it is highly probable we decide to launch a new petition very soon. Before ending, I'd like to thank once again Mr. Edouard Martin and his assistant Jean Pont. As my good friend Marie-Noëlle already said, he strongly believes in our idea to form a group of European cities against sexist ads and immediately started to put it to practice. Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Donatella. So sorry to be strict about time, but we are running a little bit behind. So I will now ask Mr. Edouard Martin, our colleague, to come up here to the top table so that he can carry on with the next panel.
Oh, okay. Sí.
Bonsoir à toutes, bonsoir à tous.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to say that I'm absolutely delighted to be here among you this evening, among these wonderful activists for change. We do all need to change our mindset. And we are going to carry on with the next panel. We are going to be hearing from mayors, representatives of local collections. Now we are on the eve of very important European elections, but you've already been elected. So I don't imagine that you had to advertise yourself with half your clothes on in order to be elected. Now, that might sound like a strange image, but it's no odder, no worse than some of the images that we've already seen. An awful lot of the advertising we see around us, 54% of advertising, whatever the product, includes pictures of women either completely naked or partly naked. So you can see how dangerous that kind of publicity of advertising is. It isn't just there to sell something. It is also inculcating in us the type of comportment, the type of behavior that we should have. It's a way of trying to influence not only the young, but the older as well. Now, I am one of those who, not that long ago, didn't think it was that awful to see that kind of advertising. But actually, when you look at it more closely, it isn't just an image that's being sent. It is a very degrading way of life for human beings. And it is far too sexist. Now, local governments are also areas where there is advertising, and advertisers are very much in favor of them. I've got a question for all of you. What are your plans for dealing with this? How are you going to counter it? What have you decided to do in order to put an end to sexist advertising? Now, of course, you are here today because you support the idea of the Charter, and I thank you for that. But I imagine that you have already initiated other actions as well. And I wanted to know what you were doing to put an end to this sexist advertising. Now, 5 minutes only. I've got to be as strict as my colleague was as well. So Isham Iman from Charleroi, and he will be talking to us about what he has been doing there.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm a man, and yes, I'm proud to fight against sexist advertising, and I'm proud to fight for the equality of men and women. What I find a bit sad, on the basis of my personal experience in my local authority, well, I mean, I'm from Charleroi, the third largest city in Belgium, and when we fight sexism and fight for equality between men and women, unfortunately, there are still very few men involved. I think that's something that's worth fighting over. The Socialist and Democrat Party group at the Committee of the Regions is proud to be associated with this initiative, which is unique and aims to put an end to sexist advertising in our cities and regions. Well, I'll tell you about myself. I'm a mere councillor in Charleroi, but I've got the opportunity to take part in the debates of the Committee of the Regions. Thanks to those debates, I entered a resolution in my own town with the objective of having a control over advertising surfaces to try and control sexism in our public space. Today, we still hear sexism, we see sexism, we talk about it, but we never resolve the issue. Well, today there is something very positive, which is that there are ears open in the council, and I think that this resolution will go through. But straight away, we faced some problems and hitches. What would the budget be for this control? Who is going to have the final say over this advertising? Who is going to provide the staff? So I think in every city, in every region in our member states, we have to have the courage to say we have the will to do it. But the problem is we're always stopped by these budgetary aspects. And it's certainly the case in my own local authority. Unfortunately, it's taking a lot longer than we had originally planned. But I will continue to fight to get this motion through our local council, and to ensure that people are aware of it. I think we need to go further. In our regions and member states, there are control organizations, watchdog organizations, but we need to go beyond that. We need to have a proper observatory. It's not just a question of control, it's a question of helping towns and regions. It's a question of helping NGOs and non-profits to have a debate on sexism and to ensure that there is a battle for equality between men and women. That's why I am proud to be with you today. I am very pleased to see that this struggle is ongoing in our cities and our regions, and we need to talk about it and get the message out.
Merci, Hicham, tu étais...
Thank you very much, Hicham. That was very clear, and you kept to the time. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, on my left, we have the mayor of the 5th arrondissement, 5th district of Bucharest. That is also a city that is fighting against sexist advertising. So, Daniel Florea, could you tell us briefly what it is that the city of Bucharest is doing to fight against this sort of sexist advertising? Floor is yours, sir.
Being invited here, I'll continue to speak Romanian because I want to find the proper words. And it's a very sensitive subject, and I want to tell you exactly what I feel and what we are doing in Romania. În București.
In Bucharest, the general mayor is a woman, and we have 6 district mayors who are men. We get along fine. We've never had any kind of problem. I want to tell you one thing. When I graduated from law school, I was firstly a judge, then I was the president of the Commission for applying CEDAW rulings, and then I was also involved in other procedures for CEDAW. I know exactly what all the problems are, and we are all very aware of the problem. I believe that we need to have action on more levels. First of all, children's education. Children must understand what their parents are telling them. Then, we need to understand that we need to take measures at a local level. It's easier to take measures in a local council than to pass a law. And thirdly, we need to understand that adults need to be shown that they are subjecting their children to risks if they're not treating their children as people who can create their own ideas, who can have their own thoughts, instead of feeding them prepackaged stereotypes. Right now in Bucharest, we've talked, all the 7 mayors, we've talked about this problem, and in our rules for street advertising, we have elements that are supposed to lead to removing sexist advertising or discriminatory advertising. This is very good. It's a good start. Until now, we've had to deal with the effects of the problems. We haven't had the chance to address the roots of the problem. But once we start tackling things the right way, we will be able to find the right solutions. Thank you.
Très bien, merci, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So that was your first act today, because you're going to be signing the charter as well. Thank you very much. We are also very lucky to... well, originally we had it planned to have 2 women and 2 men on each panel, but Janet had to leave us earlier, so we are trying to be as balanced as possible. So Sandra Trauni, who represents Frankfurt. So can you tell us what it was that motivated your city to fight against sexist advertising, and what it is that you are planning to implement, or perhaps what you have already implemented? Thank you.
Sehr gerne. Vielen Dank zunächst.
Gladly. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. I'd like to begin by repeating what Jeanette Arnold mentioned earlier on, who mentioned that the entire issue has to be dealt with, or it begins at the local level, the local authority level. So I'm very glad to be a city representative here, but also a representative of the administration at the local level, and of implementers at the local level as well. And we've spoken a lot about the number of different measures that can be implemented. And of course, I'll try to describe what the situation is in the city of Frankfurt, what we've done there. From the 1st of this year, we have a new type of legislation that concerns advertisement in public spaces. We don't market these public spaces on our own, but we have a competition Europe-wide as far as the use of public spaces, and looking for different solutions as to how to deal with the issue. And a number of different solutions have been provided and implemented. So the call for tenders has been prepared, and we've been very lucky in that we have a working group that has prepared itself on this particular front. 4 people, 2 women, 2 men, so we had gender balance, and we had the opportunity there to use or within this particular agreement, or to adhere to a particular agreement. The agreement contained the following: that advertisement ought not be contrary to legislation or in any way violate the Constitution. Anything that is discriminatory in nature, for example, sexist, or in any way infringes upon the dignity of individuals, that this would not be permitted. It would be prohibited. So all advertisers have to adhere to this particular concept. So everything has been put in the form of a kind of agreement and there's been a political discussion on the one hand, and as those who spoke before me mentioned, there is that, if you like, contractually binding factor as well. In other words, people adhere to a particular contract that would be signed concerning the nature of advertising. So that's, once again, from the 1st of the 1st, 2018, we have this type of contract, and from the beginning of this year as well, we also have a unit in the local government to protect this particular type of contract and agreement, to make sure that everything is implemented, that which is contained within the particular contract. And of course, this involves that element of sexist advertisement as well. No tolerance concerning that. And this is all relatively new. We don't have that much experience, and we've thought that we have to look at what sort of good practices, what we've experienced, what others have experienced, what others have experienced, what others have implemented. We want to exchange with those people, like with Pink Stinks, and there is also the German Advertising Council and a number of other bodies and agencies as well that control and monitor advertising as well. I think it's about 45 years that the German Advertising Council has been in operation, so they have a certain amount of experience there. I've gone to Berlin, met with the people from the council in Berlin, so I think it's very important to have contact with people who have experience in this particular issue. In other words, the concrete assessment of advertisement, how that actually works. Those, in other words, who have dealt with that. And a number of colleagues have pointed out that actually the most important, of course, tool is sort of diminishing, if you like, in a public fashion, in a public forum, denouncing those who conduct this particular type of advertisement or involved in this type of advertising activity. It is a very hard measure indeed, but that is one measure which can be used. In other words, as soon as something appears, then it is denounced that this particular type of advertising or this particular type of presentation is sexist in nature. So that is indeed an instrument, a practical instrument as well. And In Germany, we also have a number of very good reasons, a very positive, if you like, foundation upon which we can work, because many advertisers, particularly the larger ones, have become sensitized. They're aware of the particular issues on this advertising front, and they already have been given warnings, if you like, from the German Advertisement Council. For example, we have that particular example of a large, huge building-sized poster that was hung on the side of a building with a sort of Venus-like figure, or a statue of Venus, if you like, with a wet T-shirt on and then being showered with water, advertising something or other. Of course, it was immediately denounced as unacceptable advertising, and it was immediately removed. And now, from the 1st of 2018, on the basis of this particular new contract system or agreement system that has been set up, we have, if you like, some sort of basis upon which we can work and to act directly against this type of advertising. I think we're on the right path. Of course, there's still a lot to be learned on our side. There's still a lot that has to be learned on the advertiser side as well. But as far as what we have to learn on our side, we're drawing from those that have positive experiences and the know-how of others. And there are specific fields, like, for example, advertising for houses of prostitution. This is a very special issue and a very something that has to be dealt with. There is that prostitution, advertising prostitution is legal in Germany. There are some that in certain instances where advertising for prostitution is forbidden, but that concerns certain, if you like, categories or certain approaches from the legal point of view. So it is not essentially forbidden advertising prostitution, and the question is how this particular advertising would be conducted and the various issues that would arise around this particular sensitive issue and this particularly sensitive type of undertaking which would be advertised. So a lot to be learned still. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your conclusion. This really is a discussion that is only just beginning, and I want to stress the importance and the excellence of the work that has been done by NGOs, by cities such as yours. And what we want to do through this evening's event is to launch this charter and to show through this that this isn't just a one-off, that we want this is to be something that is disseminated as widely as possible. And you, as local legislators, can help us, because it is really only through the example of municipalities, of big cities such as Frankfurt, Berlin, Charleroi, London, and others that fight against sexist advertising. Really, that is the very best way of us being able to demand that a vote be held on this, because there is no framework at European level for this. Now, I've got a young daughter of 5.5. I am very proud of her. She loves the colour blue. She loves football. She likes dolls, but she likes little cars as well. She plays cars with her little brother as well. And that is what it means to be a young girl in the modern era. And we've heard that pink stinks, but it doesn't necessarily. It's good that she doesn't just like the colour pink. And I think the event this evening is really the springboard for future work. And next year we're going to get hundreds and thousands of different municipalities. I won't be here then next year, but others as well, I hope, will base themselves on the work that has been done already, the work done by NGOs in cities, so that finally we can have a law that bans degrading advertising and that is in balance about gender. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Edouard. This man is always in the forefront a man who is always in the forefront when it's against sexual harassment and sexual discrimination. Thanks so much, Edouard. Irache, thanks so much. You are our pioneer on gender issues and on women's rights. All our distinguished guests, great to have you here. And as Edouard already indicated, we will start a campaign today with a commitment. We are founding a network which will work for the purposes we dedicated each other towards this night. And this is the commitment, a charter of commitment against sexist advertising. And I invite all elected members here tonight, Danielle, to sign that, which we will do as well. And then this is the founding document of our initiative, and it will be increased, I'm pretty sure, by next year by many, many, many additional projects who help us forward on that. So everybody is invited to have a drink outside, to chat a bit, to exchange views. The MEPs can express themselves on the wall, but also just have a drink and get into a discussion. We enjoyed it a lot, and we will continue. Yeah, bien sûr. Bien sûr.
Je suis désolé, je voudrais terminer.
Sorry, I just wanted to close with the FEPS, the NGO. I just wanted to say, please pick up their nice publicity, their advertising. So let's deal with sexist advertising the way it deserves.
Now we close the meeting and invite everybody outside.